Yes, welcome to the No State Project here on LRN.FM and streaming live, of course, on my YouTube channel, No State Project, live from the fortified compound in San Bernardino, California. So, glad to be back here live. I had what looked like it was going to be another tech issue, but it was a browser issue. So if you want to join me on the big show today, we got a lot of stuff. Well, as usual, we got a lot of stuff to discuss here on the big broadcast. Keep in mind, it is a radio broadcast here on Saturdays, the LRN stream. So every quarter of the hour, we are going to have a few minutes without content. So, and also, I will be pulling the live stream down so we can have the good audio and not have a choppy video, which, no, we don't need that. So the number is 218-632-9399, 218-632-9399. The passcode is 2020 with the #. And just so you know, it's not a toll-free number. Well, if you call on Skype, it's cool. I want to thank, of course, Patrick for bringing us today's show, his support of the show. Fellow vegan, which actually I did respond to a post. And the reason why I did, and I know I mentioned on the last broadcast about the cancerous nature of Facebook posts, and of course on YouTube. But it was he's been on the show many times. I got to have him back on again. But he was on not too long ago, Alex Knight III, and he had posted that video with Ted Nugent on the Joe Rogan show, and the comment was that it's hard, that it was something about Ted Nugent dropping a truth bomb and that you weren't able to argue with the logic that Ted Nugent was using. And usually that's not an issue. Usually that's not an issue when you're discussing someone like Ted Nugent as far as there being logic involved. Ted Nugent is a pretty good source to go to if you want to know how to dodge a draft, or if you want to learn pentatonic riffs on the guitar. That he's pretty good at. He's actually a decent guitar player. But as far as ethics and logic and things like this, not really your go-to guy. But how to crap yourself for 2 weeks and get out of fighting in Vietnam. Yeah, he's a pretty good guy to go to for that.
I like him.
Okay. Well, he's got a couple good songs. He likes to sing about banging 13-year-olds, too, so. Anyway, you're on video, dear. So, you don't need to do that.
Bye.
Bye. The last bastion of professionalism. So anyway, it had to do with combines. And so, like when you're harvesting or clearing a field, and he says that you kill every single animal, including birds. Every single animal in a field, let's say corn or whatnot. Every single animal, whether it's a bird, whether it's a rodent, every single one is killed when you harvest that field. And studies have shown that, of course, Ted is dead wrong. Another thing that Ted doesn't seem to understand, and there is, when you're talking about ethics, which is what veganism is about, ethics, not about diet, it's about ethics. It's being ethically consistent. Not perfect, but ethically consistent. And so he completely misunderstands or chooses to ignore, and this is what people who are so angry against vegans miss. This is ethics. Ethics matter. Right and wrong matters. Intentionally harming others and things is unethical. So what he fails to draw a distinction between intentional killing and unintentional killing. So there's a world of difference between somebody going out on the street in a car and hydroplaning and smashing into, let's say, a crowd. Smashing into another car. He has not intentionally hurt people. The damage is bad. It's a tragedy. But to say that it's unethical, no, that's not true. Ted conflates intentional killing with unintentional killing. And there's a huge difference ethically. If you have a choice to cause harm or not cause harm, to meet your end, whatever the end may happen to be. This is like ethics, introduction. If you have a choice, you want to do A, and you have two choices. Cause harm to do A, or not to do harm to do A. If you choose to do harm when you have a choice not to, you're making an unethical choice. Now, you can sit there and you can piss and whine and bitch and complain and say, don't throw your morality down on me, or don't try to force your ethics on me. No one's forcing an ethics on you, unless, of course, you actually physically attack me. Then you're going to get some ethics back, okay? But calling out, at least theoretically here, when an unethical action is or choice is it's not forcing your morality on anybody. We're just having a discussion. So this is something that it's not difficult to argue with the so-called logic that people like Ted Nugent and Joe Rogan and most people who are just angry, against vegans. Every excuse in the world. Every excuse. Somebody even posted that I was shaming, or vegans shame the Inuit people in Canada. No. Again, this is a situation where people are refusing or just ignoring the ethics of the matter. It has to do with choice. Now, if you've got a group of people like the Inuits who have no other choice and have for hundreds of years lived in an area where they have no choice, then it's ethical. There may still be an ethical dilemma, but it's not the same as a situation where you have choice. And Ted Nugent clearly has a choice. The man is more wealthy than he should be, than he deserves. There's absolutely no reason or justification for him to go out and shoot an animal that's not causing any harm to his farm. Or to, so it's a different thing. If there's an animal that's causing harm to another animal or to your actual food supply, well, yeah, then it's ethical. But the Inuits, of course, don't have a choice. At least they didn't. So that's the thing. It's about choice. It's why things with what we call government, it's why it's unethical. Because they don't give you a choice. You either pay or you go to jail. And government itself, this so-called this is necessary evil. So it comes down to, do you have to destroy people's lives? Do you have to use a prison system in order to provide basic services such as water, sanitation, sewage, things like this? Do you have to? Is there a choice? Do you have to use coercion to provide those services? The answer is a resounding no. You absolutely do not have to. So that's why it is unethical. You don't have to destroy people's lives in order to provide roads and to provide water, to provide sewage, sanitation. You don't need to do that. And it's the same issue here with veganism. It's the exact same form. You've got different content, but it all hinges on the choice. So to be consistent, and you're going to say, there's a choice here. We don't need to force people to pay for these services. There's an alternative. Well, there's an alternative to eating animals and killing them and exploiting them. You don't have to. We're up against a break again. This is a radio broadcast, so please bear with me that there's no content during the quarter of the hour breaks. But if you want to join me, it's 218-632-9399, 218-632-9399. The passcode is 2020 with that there pound sign. Yes, welcome back to the No State Project here on the Liberty Radio Network, LRN.FM, and streaming live from my YouTube channel. Again, don't get I'm going to be pulling this stream down and just uploading the good video, and probably just, it'll be audio only, which is really what's important here. If you want to join me on the show, it's 218-632-9399. 218-632-9399. I'm changing things up with the role play. I'm going to be doing what I can with people that I'm working with in court. I'm so sick to death of the BS in the chat. No good deed goes unpunished. So if you are working with me, if you're interested in the role play, I'm only recommending that you contact me at Frank Rizzo 3. I will schedule role plays during the week, and I would go so far as to tell people that do not participate in the role plays unless I am a part of it. I'm tired of hearing about this crap of people bringing stuff up about how I'm a scam artist or they're trying to pull people out. All I do is get people thrown in jail, that everyone I work with goes to jail. All these stupid things. I'm tired of that. We got a pretty good track record of helping people resolve these issues. And I'm tired. I've done what I can to clean up this crap. Can't get rid of the trolls. Can't get rid of the drama. Can't get rid of people that interrupt. Everyone's ego being bruised. Everyone crying foul. So I'm just going to have to do what I can to spend the time and actually moderate and do the role play sessions myself. So if I'm not on the role play, then it's not something that I sanction. So I'll say this throughout the show. I am not sanctioning any role play that I'm not a part of. So if you do get into a role play with somebody, I don't want to hear someone say, well, Mark is advocating this or Mark is advocating that. If I'm not on the role play, it has nothing to do with me, and I don't want any association with it. That's just the way it unfortunately has to be. It's, what can you do? This is, talk about giving status and excuses to why you need government. You can't even get a handful of so-called anarchists to, so. Oh, well, that's it. What do you do? What do you do? Okay. Some of the things I wanted to discuss before we get into any calls. This is, you're thankful whenever you see where, it's a horrible situation like in Dallas where a cop goes into the wrong apartment and shoots somebody, and that they were actually arrested, even if it was only a few days, it was a few days after that she got the privilege, the blue privilege of being able to go home from the crime scene. But much like a Dave Chappelle routine, you have to look for reasons to take the attention away from what the crime that the police officer did, and you have to go to blame the victim. Boy, if they had a complicit media like George Bush had, and that murdering son of a bitch, everything that the media could do to paint Saddam as the worst person in the world to justify an invasion based on lies. Not saying he was a good guy, but and then Afghanistan, they actually, I don't want to get. So what they're doing here is they got a warrant to search the victim's home. This man is the victim. So instead of getting a warrant to search the perpetrator's home, they got a warrant the next day to search the victim's home. Now, why, if the victim's home is a crime scene, why would you need a warrant to search it? It's a crime scene. So that, right off the top of my head, the first thing that throws up a red flag is something's really wrong here. It's a crime scene. Somebody, if I'm wrong, I'd be, I'm sure. Look, somebody will tell me But if you're going to say I'm wrong, please give me a citation that shows that in a situation like this, where there is an active crime scene, or there was at least a manslaughter charge involved, why you would need a warrant to search a crime scene. I would tend to think that there was, probable cause that to do that. Why they had to go the next day to get a search warrant, it just doesn't seem. It doesn't sit well. It doesn't seem right. So of course they go in, and here's the big surprise. No, he wasn't. They didn't sprinkle crack on him, but they did find marijuana. Oh my! So even after he's dead, why not just sprinkle crack on the guy? Why not do like in Baltimore and drop a fake gun? Absolutely disgraceful. Note to self, stay the hell away from Dallas. One more. Well, that's, Johnny Winter did a song, great song, called Dallas. Not a very complimentary, great song, but not very complimentary to Dallas. I recommend definitely checking that out. I play it on the show, but then I get hit with a stupid copyright violation, so that is something you'll have to do, look up on your own. But definitely recommended. Yeah, people have known about Dallas for an awful long time. Can you imagine that? See, if she had done that and shot another off-duty cop, do you think that they would be trying to smear the cop? Man, they would really be conflicted. Those copsuckers would really be conflicted then. The only time they're not conflicted is when you have a cop that's a whistleblower. Whoa, then it's no doubt. You can't say anything bad about the police department. Nope. Oh, he must just be a disgruntled worker. He's one of them bad apples we hear so much about. So that's what you get. So I'm not seeing that anyone's correcting me that there's a serious problem where why you would need a warrant to go into an active crime scene. So I'm missing that. And just as disgusting. Well, anyway, before I get into that, they're saying that of course, that the arrest affidavit, the statements that this Amber Geiger gave at when she was first, when they first went to the crime scene, contradicts what's in the search warrant, which also then contradicts the eyewitness statements. So they can't keep the story straight whether the door was open, whether the door was not open, whether he was by the door or whether he was far away from the door. All conflicting stories. But I'll finish this story and get into this other disgraceful story, information from Ohio when we get back in just a few moments. So don't go away. Yes, welcome back to the No State Project, live for September 15th, 2015, here at the fortified compound in San Bernardino. And yes, I say fortified compound because people who challenge the sacred cows about government and nations and laws and whatnot, we don't live in homes, we live in compounds. We don't have basements, we have underground bunkers, and that's the kind of crap that you get. And statists kind of use words to their own advantage. So when you nail a statist using a word in a way, and you actually correct them and say, no, this is what it means in court, then they, well, you say this and I say that, but it all in the end. No. Words are supposed to have certain meanings. But to the statists, to the ones who are apologists for the system, whatever the context happens to be, they'll use that. Whatever furthers the narrative. So without looking at the actual evidence, just say whatever the hell you want so you can push your narrative. So, this is pretty bad, that to try to smear the victim who cannot defend himself, that it's somehow okay that he is dead because he may have had some marijuana. And, the fact that no one died is the only reason why what this piece of garbage said, isn't as bad. And I said, if you really want to get some, ruin your day, just take a look at the Bad Cop No Donut subreddit. Oh my gosh. It's just, wow, it's just awful. But there was one that caught my eye. It's sort of like when you have a Trump supporter on the news, and you just can't believe what they're saying to justify what they're doing. No different than, again, I'll go because I mentioned it earlier, that war criminal George W. Bush. When Bush and Cheney, whatever they did, supporters would find some kind of way to justify it. Dick Cheney was drinking and shot a man in the face. He shot him in the face and got the victim to apologize. Let me say it again. Dick Cheney shot a man in the face. He had been drinking. He wasn't even arrested. That's that. Again, I know he's guilty of far worse crimes. I get that. But how conditioned, how deep in the sunk cost fallacy do you have to be in? How blind do you have to be to actually find an excuse for drinking alcohol and shooting a man in the face and letting it go? George Bush made jokes. So you could say you had that scumbag who just died, that they had to lionize, right? Because he's dead. The so-called war hero, John McCain. What he joked around, bomb, Iran, okay? He hugged George Bush. There's a very famous picture of him hugging George Bush. George Bush is on video joking. Where are those weapons of mass destruction? Well, they're not under here. He joked about it. This guy doesn't have nearly the political clout that George Bush did, but he has the same dangerous mentality. And this is exactly why we should not have a ruling. This here is the mindset why we shouldn't have a gosh darn ruling class. What's his name? John Becker. He's an Ohio State representative. And the headline is, if police tase or shoot a child, she probably acted stupid or was a punk. It says Representative John Becker doubles down on his recent comments about the tasing of an 11-year-old girl. Now, I stress girl, not because I'm a sexist, but girls tend to be a little smaller and not quite as, generally not as physically capable, especially against an adult man. An 11-year-old child allegedly shoplifting. Kevin Brown, so Cincinnati police officer Kevin Brown's decision to fire a taser an 11-year-old girl suspected of shoplifting from a grocery store in August immediately drew criticism from city officials and advocates. Yes, city officials. But Ohio State Representative John Becker has a different take. Had it been his daughter, he announced in an August newsletter, I'd be ashamed and embarrassed that she did something stupid enough to get herself tased. Becker's remarks appeared in his newsletter, Beckerisms, weeks after the Cincinnati mayor, John Cranley, apologized for the officer's actions and the county prosecutor said the girl would not face charges. Wow. An internal review released this month found that the officer had violated multiple rules. A departmental hearing is pending. I have daughters. Not that you need to have daughters to have empathy and see how wrong this is. But I seriously doubt that if his 11-year-old child was tased, he'd be blaming her. And if he would blame a child, wow, you're one vile piece of garbage. Becker also addressed police shootings in his newsletter. If his child were shot by police, he wrote, rather than blaming the cop, I'd be blaming myself and endlessly soul-searching to figure out how I failed as a parent and why my kid grew up to be a punk. Based on the evidence, what I see on television, it oftentimes appears to me that justice was delivered to the dead punk. John Becker. Sounds like I need to maybe call this guy. And if his child was shot, he wouldn't blame the cops. He'd blame himself. Wow. Well, I guess if he was teaching his child the same lack of empathy or the same lack of concern for other people, and they had sociopathic tendencies like their dear old dad, maybe the cop had a reason then. I doubt it. A child? A child? How do you justify shooting a child? Well, you got nothing, no different than when you've got someone like Jeff Sessions saying that it's okay to separate children from their parents and move them several states away. This isn't a matter like a misdemeanor where you shouldn't go to jail for misdemeanor anyway. They broke the law. Oh, but see, if you are arrested because you violated a traffic rule, they don't separate the children from the entire family and move them from, let's say, California to Texas, or vice versa. So they even include, now this sounds just like a spouse that is beating their spouse, and it's you are making me do this. He says, body camera video includes Brown telling the girl after he tased her, sweetheart, the last thing I want to do is tase you like that. When I say stop, you stop. Hey, when I tell you to cook my dinner, you do it. You know you're caught, just stop. That hurt my heart to do that to you. Then I got to listen to all these idiots out there here in the parking lot telling me about how I was wrong for tasing you. Your own department told you that. Your own boss, the mayor. This is disgraceful. We'll be back here on the No State Project in just a moment. Don't go away. Yes, welcome back to the No State Project here on LRN.FM, the Liberty Radio Network. And someone made a comment. Yeah, I probably should have mentioned it. While I am speculating here and I have no evidence, I'm only going based on what has happened so many times before when an innocent man is killed by the police. Just like in Baltimore, it came out in testimony this week. You can look that up. We've known about it for a long time, but they bring guns with them. And it's not just Baltimore. It's a very common practice for police to bring guns with them. So if they shoot somebody, they can plant the gun and say, look, I feared for my life and whatnot. I have, while no direct evidence of this, and I am speculating, I have no doubt, though, that the marijuana that was found at the victim's apartment was planted there by the police. Again, I'm speculating. I mean, how many times has it happened? Again, I'll bring that piece of garbage, Slager, in, I think it was North Carolina, who shot a man in the back on video, planting evidence. That's what cops do. And there is other dash cam or body cam footage that has come out, and, you know, it's a regular thing. You could just go do a search on YouTube where cops are by their own body cam planting drugs on somebody. There have been whistleblowers that have come out and have said that what cops will do is they'll keep a small bag with them, and they'll just drop it on the floor. There you go. You got drugs. See, when it's a code violation, it's really easy. But when it's a real crime, very difficult to fabricate, to fabricate the evidence. So, anyway, to get back about this, Becker. What I was saying before, again, this sounds like a classic spousal abuse situation. This is the body camera video of the cop, his name is Brown, telling the victim, 11-year-old child, sweetheart, the last thing I want to do is tase you like that. When I say stop, you stop. You know you're caught, just stop. That hurt my heart to do that to you. Then I got to listen to all these idiots out here in the parking lot telling me how I was wrong for tasing you. You understand something? This is a child. This is a little girl. There is no reason to tase an 11-year-old girl. Even if this 11-year-old girl this child was to attack you, just trying to punch and kick you, you don't need to tase an 11-year-old. You don't need to tase an 11-year-old boy. An adult man with combat training, some kind of martial arts training, which cops get, does not need to use a taser. You don't need to use a baton, and you certainly don't need to use a gun to subdue and neutralize a physical attack by a child. So this reminds me where a spouse beats the hell out of, look, you made me do this. Now I got to hear all your friends, I got to hear your father, I got to hear your parents, all complaining about my hitting you is wrong. Yeah. What's amazing here is the police department actually went against what he, and said, yeah, you were wrong. You don't tase children. Absolutely disgraceful. Doesn't say anything about him being fired or anything like that. Now, also later captioned on the video, the girl cries as the EMTs remove the taser barbs from her skin. Police Chief Elliot Isaac has said Officer Brown's use of the taser was unnecessary in this circumstance. Yeah, tasers are often billed as less lethal weapons, though tasers can kill. A 2017 Reuters study found 1,005 cases of fatal stun gun use by police, nearly all since the early 2000s, with more than 150 autopsy reports citing tasers as a cause or contributor to deaths. Wow. When the appeal asked Representative Becker if it's appropriate, Becker's the piece of garbage that said that it's okay, that if his kid was killed by a cop, he'd blame himself. If it's appropriate for police to use potentially deadly force against children, he replied via email, children, are we talking about 5-year-olds or 17-year-old armed gang members? It obviously depends on the age of the child and the circumstances involved. When the appeal pointed out that the child in this case was 11, Becker responded she was simply tased for resisting arrest. Wow. Becker also told the appeal that if police tase a child, it could be an indication of a parenting problem. Wow. Anything you can say to avoid addressing the problem. You cop-sucker, you. What a cockroach. I can't, this is unbelievable. Unbelievable. If I were to do the research, I would expect to find that kids that come from two-parent, intact, supportive families are less likely to get in trouble with the authorities than kids that come from tougher environments. Now, what you're going to find is that people who are poor get into more trouble. And you'll find that rich people don't get tased and don't get shot. That is extremely rare. Extremely rare. I wrote in Government Indicted. Now, nobody is going to seriously try to say that high school kids in Beverly Hills don't smoke pot and possess pot and don't do drugs. Yet, how many no-knock raids are done in Beverly Hills and in exclusive places in Hollywood area? I did Google searches when I wrote the book. I couldn't find anything. I just think I'm going to have to contact John Becker. It's okay to use deadly force against a child. Absolutely a disgrace. And I discussed in Government Indicted in quite a bit of detail the psychological implications of having a ruling class. When you have people like John Becker, who, under the guise of protection and necessary services, using a prison system to get payment, a prison system and violence, a force continuum to use as much force as is necessary to get compliance with your order. This is what you get. You get people like Dick Cheney shooting people in the face while they're drunk, walking away from it. That's why I say ethics matters. If you apply the same ethical standards of, the do no harm, that it's wrong to cause harm if you have a choice. Simple, basic principles. If you apply it to the people called government, it is monstrously unethical and immoral. Please spare me this stuff and don't force your morality on me. The ones who are forcing morality on somebody are people called government. That it's moral for them to steal from us. It's moral for them to use deadly force against children. It is moral to use deadly force to get your way when somebody is not a threat to you. That is forcing your morality and your ethics on somebody. But sitting here on the radio and pointing out unethical behavior is not forcing my morality on you or anyone else. Gosh. I get, learn the difference between these two. I'm not the one driving around in a police car, using force to get compliance with my morality. Please at least make a distinction there. I'm not forcing anyone to comply with my morals and ethics. The only time that comes into play is if you physically violate them. Then I will use defensive force to stop you. But you want to join me, it's 218-632-9399, 218-632-9399. We'll be back in just a moment. Yes, welcome back to the No State Project, second of 3 hours of Anarchy Radio right here on the Liberty Radio Network, LRN.FM. And the band that you're hearing now that I played during the break is my friend Chris from Key West, a band called Double Bucci. And you won't find them on YouTube yet, but I will take the CD and upload it soon, hopefully this week, and you can have it's a fantastic concert. Chris was saying that it was a blur that night. They were in the zone, and they went to record, went to look at the tape and listen to the tapes and start what they had. They were really, really happy with what, and I'm glad. And Chris has told me there are more tapes. Not everything made the CD, so hopefully soon we'll get some more Double Bucci, but hopefully by next week I can finally get the entire CD up. And, it's just, I remember, I'm a guitar player myself, not like that, but guitar players like to talk a big game. And so I said, well, you're a guitar player, really? What kind of music you guys play? Well, like a high-end blues in the vein of Stevie Ray Vaughan. I'm like, okay, I've heard that. And then he sent me a CD, and that shut me up real fast because Chris can really play. And, of course, The other guitar player is Caffeine Carl Wagner, and they both still perform in Key West most days. So if you are down there, check it out. And what we mean by anarchy here on the big show, no rulers, not no rules, not this crap of chaos in government. No rulers, no ruling class, because we believe that the basic principles of right and wrong should apply to everybody and not someone be accepted. That I think it is absolute, and it is indefensible, which is why I couldn't get anybody at the ASU Law School, even the professor in charge of ethics, could not make an ethical argument for the state government. Because you can't. There is no argument that the state government or government is ethical in any way. They're not. Or moral. They violate the basic principles of right and wrong. They believe that they have a moral right to be immoral. So, of course, no one can make a logical, valid argument that it is, because look, what you have to do is you have to try to make an argument that forcing people to give you money is somehow moral and ethical, and it absolutely is not. That you have to show some kind of justification, some logical justification for why I can't force strangers to give me money under any pretext. But if you call yourself a government, then all of a sudden, well, we're going to flip that rule around. If your government, not only is it moral for you to force strangers to give you money, it's immoral to resist that in any way. So one of the lowest things that you can be in the eyes of a statist is a tax evader. Oh, that is not so good. And I got to take a few moments here, and I will get to the calls, I promise. I'll connect to the call line during the break. I do not believe in the flat earth crap, so just leave the comments and don't do it. I do not buy into this thing that the Holocaust was a hoax. I know people. I knew one in particular who was an eyewitness. Yes, I know the typical Holocaust denying BS is no, Mark. What you were with those men under Patton, for example, I knew someone who was under Patton and was in Europe. When you saw the concentration camps, when they saw piles of dead bodies, those were actually Germans. Those were white Christian Germans killed by the Jews. Yes, I do not buy into Holocaust denial. I've spoken to people that were there at the time. There's video footage, there's documentation, there was testimony about it. So if you're a Holocaust denier, please stay off I don't want to hear that. I don't buy into this crap that it's all a global Jewish conspiracy. Yes, the Jews control the Chinese government. The Jews control the South African government. The Jews control all the governments in South America. The Jews are responsible for all the world's problems. No. And just, even if you could say that, well, so-and-so grew up, and he grew up Jewish, and they used to say things like in the synagogue. Yeah, really. And that's like, because one synagogue is connected to another synagogue, and it's just, all the Jews getting together. No. I don't buy into the Jewish conspiracy thing, and I don't want to see that on the chat. So if people want to persist in the Jewish conspiracy, flat earth crap, Holocaust denial, we're just going to, ban them. And I'm not triggered. I'm not mad. I'm not angry. I'm not yelling or anything like that. Why do people do that? It's not a matter of being triggered. It's a matter of it's garbage. And I don't need to, I don't need things, this is a flat earth guy. You just need to deep investigation by suspending you disbelieve. No, I've done the investigation. The Earth is not flat. The Holocaust happened. I said, yeah, maybe not 6 million, but the Holocaust happened. Is there evidence of a global Jewish conspiracy? No, I don't see it. So, don't see it. And another thing, I'm not a freeman on the land, and I'm not a sovereign citizen. I talk about anarchy and getting to a voluntary society. I think we go a huge step in the direction towards social evolution and getting to a voluntary society if we can just change see if we can just change the manner in which the services are provided. And this is why I want to talk and hopefully get some Free State Project participants up in New Hampshire to come on the show and discuss putting out and making it a part of the dialogue at the State Assembly of removing the penalty, the drastic enforcement and the violent enforcement regarding the services. Someone's asking, can you explain more on the voluntary society? Sure. The voluntary society is where there is no ruling class, where the services that government provides now, at least the things like water and sanitation, the roads, let's say county hospitals will not, that is not done and maintained by a ruling class that forces payment under threat of violence. That the structure is in place to continue payments, but maybe not so much. And making the books transparent and having actual participation in anyway, I'm running out of time for this segment, so it's a lot to talk about for the one segment. But really, just not having the services provided at the barrel of a gun, and having voluntary mechanisms and other ways of making sure that the services are paid for. And that, let's say, because people want to always piss on the idea of socialism. We're talking about being voluntary. And all socialism means, as opposed to capitalism, is that you have collective or, control and payment over a service. So we already have that now. Capitalism is where you have private ownership over the means of production. Socialism is you have social control over the means of production. So a county hospital is socialism. The police is socialism. The roads, socialism. All these things that government does, socialism. We just don't like the problem. The big problem is that it's done on a voluntary or coercive basis. That's the issue. That's the big issue. We'll talk about that more when we get back. If you want to join me, 218-632-9399. The passcode is 2020 with the #. Yes, welcome back to the No State Project here on LRN.FM. But not to nitpick, but you got to, and all the children are insane, not have gone insane. Anyway, Foreign making a reference to the Doors because the fan in the mirror there. So Doors references always welcome. And for those who may not, if you haven't heard it in a while, do yourself a favor and go back and listen to L.A. Woman again. Wow. Oh. It was a station in Phoenix a month or two ago, or maybe longer, where every night at 10 they play a vinyl album side, and I hadn't heard it in a while, but they played L.A. Woman side 1. Good Lord, that's a fantastic album. And I'm not even a guy for keyboards, but the Doors was so good that I can appreciate that. But yeah, L.A. even. Gosh, yeah, because for those who don't know what he was referencing, Apocalypse Now, one of the greatest intros to a movie. Boy, talk about being able to use music and visuals to bring about. The Doors, The End. What a great song. That was actually, just to go on a little bit of a tangent. I may have mentioned this before. I apologize if I'm repeating myself. people going around a number of years ago trying to make these connections and try to show that the CIA was behind and engineered the Beatles and all the counterculture type music that was in the 60s. And it was interesting reading until I got to the part where they were saying that the musicians could barely play, including the Doors. And I'm like, I'm going to have to go ahead and disagree with you there. To say like the Wrecking Company could barely play, I'm going to have to go ahead and disagree with you there. This is why critical analysis of what these people are saying, we need to actually look into it and question it. Barney Cassell was a part of the Wrecking Crew. Barney Cassell. Okay? And for those in the know, Barney Cassell played with Oscar Peterson. It's astounding to me that people get away with such shoddy research and are taken seriously. If you weren't a high-level jazz musician, and I mean high-level jazz, for not just a jazz musician, but a high-level jazz musician, you couldn't even stand in the same room with Oscar Peterson. Look, let's put it this way. Oscar Peterson played better after his stroke than most piano players could play without one. Okay? And if you don't believe me, just look up the last 5 or so years of his life. My gosh. So the idea that the Doors could barely play. Yeah, Jim Morrison couldn't play the bass, so that was covered by the keyboard player and sometimes a session guy. But to say that Ray Manzarek, John Densmore, and Robbie Krieger could barely play? Baba Funkel, give me a break. And these so-called connection. Oh yeah, I think I have spoken about it before. Yes, Jim Morrison's father was involved in the Bay of Tonkin fiasco. That doesn't mean that Jim Morrison was being directed by the CIA to get people to stop protesting the war. So, yeah. Got to look at things critically, and to get back about the voluntary society. I was mentioning, like someone today that I grew up with posted on Facebook, and it had something to do with socialism. And I know for a fact that he has, if you're a Republican or a Democrat, you are, to some degree, a backer of socialism. Now, I'm not saying that you're necessarily a Marxist or you're a communist, but you're definitely a socialist, and you believe in socialism. So what we have most places, you have a combination of socialism and capitalism. And either one with government intervention is really bad. So capitalism with governments, just ask, a lot of people in Central America and South America with the help of the CIA. There's a reason why we have what's called, banana republics. So all socialism is collective ownership of the means of production. Capitalism means private. It doesn't mean capital, that you're using money. You use money in socialism too. Capitalism is, as simple as can be, is private ownership of the means of production. That's it. It's not a matter of just using capital. That's the distinction between the two systems. That's the bottom. So if you are a Republican and you are talking about F socialism, I'm not a socialist, you are probably dead wrong. Because most Republicans, and all the Republicans that I know, want a military and they want police. That is public or collective ownership over the means of production and collective payment. So what people need to do is understand what the hell they're talking about. So, I don't know, maybe call somebody out. I think it's a matter of asking somebody when they are just hatefully antisocial or hatefully anti-capitalist, especially with these Republicans, these alt-right people. Because they tend to love this whole thing. Give him a helicopter ride, glorifying in what a mass murderer did, a helicopter ride. Oh, somebody's saying that they're in Miami. They can see Chris. Yeah, go to Key West. Chris Case, man, the boy can play. You tell him you know me. Anyway, so you want to ask him. You see, it's just like when a statist makes a claim that their laws apply. When somebody says that they are totally against socialism, ask them what the hell they mean by socialism. I'm pretty certain you're not going to have them say, well, that is, common ownership of the means of production and common ownership and payment of the means of production. Yeah, I doubt that. They want to let you think that, socialists just want free stuff. They just want everything given to them. That's not what socialism is. Now, you've got Republicans and Democrats, you've got socialists and you've got capitalists, and they'll turn around and some of them want free stuff too. That's not the essence of either one. Well, of course, with capitalism, they want to exploit people and they want to profit off of somebody else's labor while they just sit there and collect the profits. A landlord is a very common example of that. Call is dropped off, but if you want to join the big show, it's 218-632-9399, 218-632-9399. Passcode is 2020 with the pound sign. We'll be right back. Yes, welcome back to the No State Project here on the Liberty Radio Network and streaming live on my YouTube channel, No State Project. It is September 15, 2018. Glad to be with you here from San Bernardino. And you can join me on the big show. I don't know why I lost... Anyway, it's 218-632-9399, 218-632-9399. Someone's asked me, how would the things be paid for if they, in a voluntary society? And of course, this voluntary society that I mean, there's still going to be a mix of capitalism and socialism. Believe that if we keep, this is what I envision, is that the same mechanisms that are there to pay for the services are still there without the actual taking of property and putting people in jail and forcing them to pay. Does that mean that everyone will continue to pay? No, it doesn't. But I believe that there are nonviolent ways to counter that. And it's not, look, it has to be ethical, and I believe that it can be ethical and moral to provide these services and not have to destroy people's lives in the process to do that. You can still have lotteries like we have now to help pay for that stuff. And I think that once you get rid of the coercive mechanism and you start stripping judges and whatnot, people who are part of the system, you start stripping them of such fantastic salaries, and they should be all publicly available for audit. The costs come down. There's so much pomp and circumstance and waste that goes on because things are done, because they're going to get paid anyway. That invites corruption. Things are hidden from view. People don't know. They're not allowed to see. So it comes down to, do we structure society in such a way, because we have to make sure, look, not everybody pays now. We know from the Panama Papers, I think, was it Panama Papers? We know that it was really said that the ultra rich aren't paying now. But there are ways, that they hide the money. Now, one way to, as we're transitioning, I've mentioned before, is you don't have to be permitted to act as a corporation. So let's say things were to go this way in a place like New Hampshire. What is the incentive for a company to continue paying? Well, one of them is you may not be able to do business anymore as a corporation, so that all your top people, your CEO, the CFO, the COO, whatever, and the board, they don't have immunity from suit. They're actually liable to a cause of action. They can't argue corporate immunity. That's another big thing is, like I've mentioned, I don't even think they should necessarily be called judges. Maybe they should be called referees. They should be called arbitrators. One, they should not have immunity of any kind. They should be the same liability for any other profession should be with an arbitrator. The idea that they should be, I get and understand that they should be able to make decisions that are tough, that people in the public may not agree with. But as long as you're not pulling this crap that some critics think that judges can say whatever they can rule however they want, and they don't have to tell you the reasons. See, that is one of the reasons why they need immunity, is because they're making decisions with no logical basis. But if they are making decisions based on the actual evidence, they shouldn't have to be, the idea that, judges should not, every other profession practically has to deal with lawsuits, but they shouldn't have to. No, we're getting rid of the ruling class, and the rules apply to everybody. It should not be seen as a lifetime appointment. It should always be based on merit. You keep your job based on your merits. It's just getting past this mental block that people hear, that they hear socialism and they automatically think bad. Well, it doesn't have to be bad if it's not being done with a prison system. What is bad with the socialism we have in the United States or Canada, for example? What's bad about that is that you're forced to pay. It's the coercion, stupid, right? It's the involuntary nature of it. It's why it's immoral. That is what creates and keeps in place the ruling class. The ruling class is the problem, not having a community-owned, operated, and paid for service. As long as it's voluntary. Yes, are there going to be free riders? Yes. You got free riders now, and it's coerced. What's going to happen, Well, then there'll just be more people. There has to be a better way to make people, to have people pay for those services. So, there's still going to be mortgages. So you don't tear apart the structure that to get the mortgage, you have to pay the property tax, which is going to go, in this society, I believe, that's going to go strictly to paying for the services, not enriching politicians. See, the violence is what creates all the perverse incentives. The violence is what creates and has a violent hierarchy that creates all the psychological problems leading to people like John Becker in Ohio, who thinks it's okay to chase a child, even to shoot a child, and it's not the child's fault, it's the parent's fault. It's never the fault of the individual who actually committed the violent act. You look at again, I know it's been pointed out the Stanford prison experiment has its flaws. Let's not cite that anymore. But the Milgram experiment on authority has been replicated over and over and over and over again. So we still can look at the Milgram experiment on authority as to why we should not have a ruling class and have so-called authority. This all goes back to what I wrote about in Adventures in Legoland. It's not that socialism is wrong or that capitalism is bad. It's that when you have it enforced at the barrel of a gun, when you have a violent ruling class, that's when the problems start. Yeah, and I know you can look at examples like HOAs or whatnot. They have government backing. Governments have it so that you have to do that. So then you can get these retired people that are going around with a ruler and measuring, your grass and whatnot. So it's not saying that it's utopia, but it certainly is much better, and it's definitely a step in the right direction for social evolution, getting rid of the ruling class. And this, because every study that I know of, and we'll just use Stanley Milgram, it's the belief in authority that helps cause the problems. To hurt somebody because of authority, we want to get rid of the concept of authority. That it is okay to lie, steal, kill, and cheat people if you are government because you are an authority and that somehow excuses you from the consequences of your actions. It doesn't. So to turn around and try to make socialism or capitalism the scapegoat instead of the violence that is propping up each one, that's just wrong. There are problems with socialism, and there are certainly problems with capitalism. But to try to say that, take out of the picture and not say that a big contributing, if not the biggest contributing factor of the problems with them is that you have the violence supporting it and propping it up. Yeah, and somebody's mentioning the Ash conformity test. Yeah, well, when you've got everyone pissing and moaning about socialism being bad, the Ash conformity tells us they're not going to, they may not even look at, they'll give the wrong answer. They may not believe socialism is the worst thing under the sun, but when everyone else is under the impression it's only about free stuff, yeah, it's kind of tough. All right, we'll be back in just a few moments. You want to join me on the big show, 218-632-9399. Passcode is 2020 with the pound sign. So we'll be back in just a few moments. Don't go away. Yes, welcome back to the No State Project. I'm your host, Mark Stevens, author of Government Indicted, which you, of course, can get at markstevens.net. And, Government Indicted has a full model of what we talk about here on the show most of the time, about how to effectively defend yourself in court. And if you want evidence of that, then, of course, you can see that under these success stories. And you'll be able to replicate what we've been able to do on 4 continents. So, yes, Eyal in Israel has had success, and we haven't had a tax. I wish I had the paperwork on this, but somebody did get a tax case assessment tossed out in Germany, which is pretty nice to hear. But no, I did not post that because I did not get the actual proof. And, everyone wants to, there are inherent flaws with capitalism, and anyone who says that there isn't is just, you're just dead wrong. And, you could turn around and say, with this example of the automakers, really not capitalism, because capitalism, of course, is just the private ownership of the means of production. But when you got people acting as a corporation, whether it's socialist or whether it is capitalist, that's bad. And, they have, because what it comes down to, your typical, your ultra rich or your capitalist is the bottom line. People don't mean a damn thing. Not to bankers. I mean, look at Lloyd Blankfein. This man helped contribute, like with Jamie Dimon and other bankers. And of course, government could have been done without the boys in DC. You're talking about one of the worst crashes in American history would happen in 2008 in May. And that was engineered by the banks. Of course, it's helped out by real estate people. The whole flipping craze. But he actually said he was doing God's work. Wow. So there are many examples where in the car industry, the automobile manufacturing industry, where they knew that there was a problem with their product, but it was cheaper to settle the wrongful death lawsuits than to fix the damn problem. So, yeah. Is that a success of capitalism, or is that, what do we got over here? The Pinto was just one of these examples. Can you imagine that? They do a cost-benefit analysis. We've got an issue here with the car. It's killing people. What do? I think we should fix it now and recall. Like, do you have any idea how much it's going to cost to recall and fix the factory and this? No. Let's talk to our actuaries over here. How much in potential lawsuits are we looking at? Oh, so if we fix everything, let's say that's, $20 million. But we're only looking at maybe 10 million in wrongful deaths. Yeah, let everyone go out and die. let everybody go out there and die. So that's what. See, problems on the both sides. What we want to do is take care of the real root of the problem, or the root, depending on where you're from. And that's the violence. It's the violence. See, the violence is the problem. They think they have a moral right to be immoral. So they haul us into their courts pretending that their rules apply to us. And they not only say that the principles of right and wrong don't apply, the principles of logic don't apply. So if you are prepping to go to court, and I can't stress this enough, you have to put some work in. You have to know basic principles of logic. You have to know, at least the most common objections when you go to court. You have to know some of you should know the process. The burden of proof is always on the accuser. We need to know these things. But you need to know also that they will do and say whatever's necessary to try to convince you that you are wrong for trying to call them out on their unfairness and them being illogical. Okay? I think we're getting that. Yeah, it's Saturday, so. And I am using Wi-Fi right now. So you have to know when you do go into court, it's no different than an abusive spouse that's trying to gaslight you, all right? One spouse is being secretive. They don't let them see the phone. They're taking conversations in private and whatnot. And it's just, well, you're crazy. What you're seeing is all in your head. So you get to court and they want you to believe lies. So you have to accept as part of the tactic that everything that they say is a lie. Now, like I said in a video about this, it doesn't mean that everything they say is a lie. But you have to assume that so that you get in your mindset is that I'm going to challenge everything here. It's just like someone, like I mentioned earlier, saying that the bands of the late 60s could barely play. I got to tell you, boy, when it comes to the baby boomers, there was something going on in the late 40s because the musicians of the late 60s and the 70s were almost unbelievably talented. So you have to look at what they're saying. You have to analyze it. Is that true? All right. And I that's just something I'm just more familiar with. Musicians of the 60s could barely play the counterculture. Yeah, you're going to say that the Grateful Dead weren't really good top-end musicians? Really? Really? Here's one. The Electric Flag. Unfathomably talented. The Allman Brothers, for goodness sakes. So, know when you go into court, and there's, look, and there's going to be people that think, they want to tell you otherwise. And I'd be the first to admit that there are things that I do that have proven to be very successful. Are they things that lawyers would do? No. Does that mean that they're wrong and you shouldn't do it? You have to go based on the results. You have to go based on, is this logical? Is it logical? That's why you'll notice that there are no actual comments or valid criticisms on my 5 tips to be more effective in court, because only an idiot would find a problem with that. Because it's logical. It goes right in line with what they're doing. Well, why do we challenge the prosecution's claims? Because they had the burden of proof. For over 2,000 years, logic has dictated. The one who makes the accusation bears the burden of proof. That which can be asserted without evidence can be dismissed without evidence. But when you get to court, they want you to believe differently. They want you to believe that the basic... I actually had someone on the show state unequivocally that basic principles of logic do not apply in a courtroom or in law, period. Yet, you have objections such as lack of foundation. You have objections on relevance. Now, if relevance doesn't come directly from basic principles of logic, I really need to do some more research. And of course, the burden of proof in court is on the accuser or the accuser. And that comes right from Greece, ancient Greece. So if you can't use basic principles of logic in court, somebody needs to tell me then why the burden of proof. You can and you should, because our point is to show it's grossly unfair. And we should be saying whatever is rational and rooted in logic, okay, to show that what they're doing is grossly unfair. We'll take your calls in the next segment, 218-632-9399, 218-632-9399. The passcode is 2020. Top of the hour break, so we got about 5 minutes, so we'll be right back. Welcome back to the No State Project live for September 15, 2018, here in San Bernardino, California. Number if you want to reach me on the big show, 218-632-9399, 218-632-9399. The passcode is 2020 with the pound sign. If you're having problems, we're having problems with the YouTube stream. Some people complaining about that. Not a shock there, right? You can hear the broadcast live, of course, on the LRN stream, lrn.fm, which is the Liberty Radio Network. Again, the link, I put the link in the chat, but if you missed that, since it goes by quick, it is lrn.fm. So Liberty Radio Network, that's the initials there. And, somebody brought up something about common law court. I think from what I remember, this crap years ago was you want to have a common law court because there's no victim, no crime, or no victim, no cause of action. And that is just not supported by the facts and the evidence, the evidence in history. Because slavery was okay and part of the common law. It was part of the English common law until 1771. And supposedly ended with the Somerset's case. They still continued, but especially in the United States. Taxation. What about taxes? Where is the victim? So, common law? Nah. And people peddling this, can you show one success? One time where you argued that you should be in a common law court because you were in a statutory jurisdiction. Show one time that has actually been successful where you've done that. And like I mentioned before, like when it comes to taxes, the common law, I can't turn the video resolution down in the middle of a live stream. And if you can do that, then I have no idea how to actually do that. So maybe someone can tell me that. I'll do it on a break. The whole thing is the common law was to pay the tax first and then sue for refund if they left anything out. If they left you anything. The statutory provision was to allow you to seek redress before they stole your property. So not always a good thing. The important thing here is to challenge what they're actually saying against you. And so it's proven sufficient to do that. They're saying that their laws, whatever they happen to be, apply because you're physically in Arizona. Or in Kim.com is a situation, you don't ever have to even be in the United States. The laws still apply. Magically. Someone says here, if you are a vegan, you better not be eating tofu and soy products. I have been eating plants for years now. I'm not you could be a vegan and eat tofu and soy products. This whole thing about soy boys is just some stupid alt-right crap. The evidence is soundly against it. Soy boy, what a stupid thing. Holy crap. Alex Jones doesn't come out with enough stupid things that they're turning the friggin' frogs gay. Somebody wasn't aware that, all right, I'm trying to get to some of the questions here because what are we doing here? No call. Again, if you want to join the show, it's 218-632-9399, 218-632-9399. Somebody making a comment about he's leaving because he thinks I'm going to go with the trope that meat is murder. I don't think I've actually ever said that. It's not typically something that I do say. I do believe that ethics matters, even, and right and wrong matters, even if you're a nihilist and you just want to take this and I like to keep things simple. And that's why, and I think, every discussion about this, I think it would go a lot easier if you just narrowed it down to the basic principle that if does somebody believe in the ethic that if you have a choice in doing A of causing harm or not causing harm, that if you pick causing harm when you have a choice, that's unethical. If you can't agree on that, I don't see the point in having a discussion with somebody because I don't think they understand or accept basic principles of ethics. No, if they do accept that, then it's very simple. If you accept that not causing harm when you have a choice is the only ethical way to go and causing harm is unethical, then you have to be a vegan. It doesn't matter if you don't have to argue that meat is murder. Same as you don't have to argue that taxation is theft. Because there's no need to complicate it. It's just like someone I read, some psychologist, pointed out that when you're dealing with people like Republicans and Democrats or Trump supporters, it doesn't really help to give an analogy, because all you've done is taken the focus away from the point you're trying to make, and you're giving them something to pull apart. And so I've experienced that myself. It's really, when you make an analogy, now you're shifting the focus of the discussion to start talking about the analogy and how the analogy doesn't fit. So keep it strict to the actual principle, just like with government. If I was to operate in the same manner as you guys, the government, and I forced perfect strangers to give me money, would you consider me a criminal? It's very easy. Of course, because you're sticking to the principle. You're addressing the actual principle. Is my feed that bad that everyone is dropping off? Well, I guess not. There's still people commenting. So, all right. Well, we're going to be I'm going to be pulling the live feed down, the video of that after the show, and just have the good audio, so we don't have any of the breaks or anything like that. Big shout out, Bastard Chris, supporter of the show. A request to expatriate would be sufficient evidence to prove the codes and statutes apply to the requester, affirming the requester's status as tax chattel. I disagree with that, because if you try to go to an airport, for example, and you try to get past, and you're going on an international flight, you're trying to leave the United States, even if you're just going to Canada. If you don't have a passport, you can't get out, because you have to do that. The whole point of expatriation, I don't think that proves you're just trying to jump through the hoops that these monsters have put in place so that you can be left alone, at least. And that's the thing. If you do the expatriation, you're still liable for taxation for 10 years. But I don't see how that, because I don't see how that is evidence that, I think it's only evidence that there's a bunch of men and women with guns who are willing to continue to force you to comply with their rules, even after you've left the physical, the geographic United States. It's an effort to get them to leave you the hell alone. I don't think that equates to evidence that their codes apply. The evidence is you believe that they will carry out their threats of violence. That's, I think, what it comes down to. It's like the only reason why anybody complies with their rules, not because they actually do apply, but because they don't want them to carry out their threats of violence. They don't want them to go through the force continuum, which we know that they're going to do. We know they're going to do that. And we know they're going to justify shooting children. They're going to justify, like Tamir Rice. We know that they're going to carry out that. So, yeah. But, all right, I apologize for the stream, but we are at the end of another segment here on the No State Project. 3 more segments to go. If you want to join me on the show, 218-632-9399, 218-632-9399. Passcode is 2020 with the #. And we can get you on the big show. If you want to talk about defending yourself in court and how to better do that, then definitely give us a call and we'll hash that out. We'll be back in just a few moments, so don't go away. Yes, welcome back to the No State Project. The number to join the big show, 218-632-9399, 218-632-9399. The passcode is 2020 with the #. And because I did mention this, yes, you could contact me at Frank Rizzo 3 if you would like to join me on the show. I can actually do that when I'm here in California. So I can bring you up there. Again, 218-632-9399 and Frank Rizzo 3 on Skype. And so I'm reading here, Andy's saying, I've long had a problem with government defined as monopoly on initiatory violence. And I tend to agree. I mean, anytime we have a definition that opens the door for criticism, we need to make it simple, straight to the point, and easily verifiable. And I don't think that definition does that. I get it. And I think it's not that necessarily they have a monopoly on it, but I think what they have is they have a more, what they believe, and they've convinced people to believe, is that they have a moral right to use violence, that they have a moral right to be immoral. And that's why I like to, where I try to distill it down as simple as possible, knowing how people are going to nitpick, knowing people are going to have a problem with it. And that's why I have said for a very long time that government is nothing but men and women. It's a group of men and women that force strangers to give them money. That's what it is. Those are the facts. There is no rational dispute there. Taxation is not voluntary. I think it's hilarious that you call the Colorado Department of Revenue, and right in the on the menu when you first get in, that they talk about that they strive to get voluntary compliance. They actually have voluntary compliance. And then in their form letters that they send out, they talk about that the tax system is not voluntary. Well, yeah, but they push this thing about voluntary compliance to make it sound better. Well, they're not actually forcing you. They are. So I think that when we discuss or we want to define what government is, we can start with it's men and women forcing strangers to give them money, and use it under the guise of protecting life, liberty, and property. That, I think, is a very accurate description of reality, and people know what you're talking about. Now, you can add to that they're the only ones who have a moral right to be immoral, a moral right to lie, steal, and kill. But the definition, the base definition, I think, is right on the money. And what are people going to do? How are they going to argue with that? Are they not men and women? This is not Alex Jones' world here. Okay? They're not interdimensional demons. They're just men and women. So we've got that part taken care of. That's true. That's absolutely true. Do they force strangers to give them money? Yes. It's called taxation. I know it's not voluntary. No, it's not a matter of they're tricking you. Well, if you accept a straw man, they're very upfront. Pay us or we will kill you. Or pay us or we'll take your stuff and kill you in the process. Yeah, the lizard people. The lizard people. I'm just going to say it. They're interdimensional demons. And they're putting chemicals in the water that turn the freaking frogs gay. Oh, please. So that's why that's a much better definition to use. And that's why there's a lot less resistance to that. But there's certainly going to be people that try to spin the forcing to pay. They'll try to say things and excuse it. And none of this has any merit whatsoever. Well, you could just leave. Hey, you can't. You need their permission to leave. And even if you do, they're going to continue to tax you. They're going to continue for 10 years taking your money. They'll just keep taking your stuff. Not much we can do about that. They know where it is. They're going to take it. They think it's theirs. So leaving doesn't solve the problem. They're still forcing it. You know, it's more of this John Becker crap. You blame the victim. You should have just paid. You should have just paid. You should have complied. You should have just paid. So, yeah, I definitely think that I've come up with a better definition, because when we hit them with the facts and how unfair their process is, then they start coming out with all this trash. And the trash I mean is the stuff that we've mentioned here on the show many times, and you'll hear it when you go to court, or you'll see it. You'll see it on the chat. Some of the criticisms that are leveled at my work, and that is they don't have to prove the laws apply. They actually say things like that. Now, of course, you want to object with one of those imaginary objections. I mean, if someone's lying in court, if someone is blatantly misrepresenting the facts and even the law, you're not supposed to object to that? No, you object. You object to anything that is unfair. If something is unfair, you object to it. Only the uninformed or the trolls are going to turn around and try to tell you that if something is unfair, you shouldn't object to it. And it doesn't matter who's doing it. It doesn't matter if it's the judge. It doesn't matter if it's the prosecutor. If they're doing something that's unfair and denying you a fair trial or a fair hearing, object. So that's what, so yeah, that's all about that definition. So, but we have to know what we're talking about. Words mean things. If you're going to have a discussion, you need, this is something that happened. I responded to someone on Facebook, not Facebook, on YouTube. Somebody was making the false claim that I'm making a conditional plea when we go in to do the plea with the unsigned plea of guilty, which a plea of guilty has to be signed. You have to sign a plea of guilty, and they're saying that it is a conditional plea. A conditional plea is a very specific thing in court. It's just like saying that you're an adversary just because you oppose the charge against you. That's not what makes someone adversaries. But I'll be back with that in just a moment here on the No State Project. And you can join me at 218-632-9399. The passcode is 2020 with the #, so don't go away. Welcome back to the big show here on the Liberty Radio Network, LRN.FM. Again, the Liberty Radio Network, live every Saturday from 1 to 4 Pacific Time, 4 to 7 Eastern Standard Time, and also commercial-free on this YouTube channel. It is not an LRN stream. It is commercial-free. Every Wednesday from 3 to 4 Pacific Time, 4 to 5 Mountain Time, which I will actually be doing Mountain Time. I'll be back on Mountain Time real soon since I am in Arizona and we don't change when everybody else does. So you want to join me on the big show. I guess we're not doing calls today. But yeah, if you want to join me, it's 218-632-9399, 218-632-9399. The passcode is 2020 with the #. And you can join me also on Skype. It is Frank Rizzo 3. And just to answer this idea that words, to push your narrative, to use, even legal words and try to use it in the lay sense, and sometimes there's a crossover, and it's not always that way. But a conditional plea is something very specific in their codes, and that is that you're reserving the right to appeal the amount of the fine. Asking if the prosecution has sufficient evidence to support their claim that there's jurisdiction to even have an arraignment is not a conditional plea. You intend on pleading guilty, but you have to do it, and it has to be informed. They have to disclose to you what's being used against you. They have to disclose so you can make a voluntary and intelligent plea. So I'm not pulling it out of thin air. There's a logical reason behind it. It has to be, and you can only defend against that which is disclosed. And you have a right to be disclosed so that you understand the nature and cause of the charge or proceedings, and you can make a voluntary and intelligent plea. So when we go in to plead, and say we intend on pleading guilty, has the prosecution proven jurisdiction? The fact that the judge is forcing you to participate in the arraignment, he is under the impression that there's evidence of jurisdiction. But I don't see it. So it needs to be disclosed so I can make a voluntary and intelligent plea. Well, it can never be voluntary, but you can make an intelligent plea. So it is not conditional to ask if the judge is acting pursuant to due process. Is there evidence of jurisdiction to require an arraignment? It's no different than saying, and I've had prosecutors actually say this. I say in the motion to dismiss that it's not actually an adversarial, it's not adversarial in nature, because as the Supreme Court has ruled many times, to be adversarial, there has to be an antagonistic assertion of rights. The plaintiff must claim that their rights were violated, and they have to have evidence to support that. The fact that you disagree with someone's claim doesn't automatically make it adversarial. If that were true, imagine how many complaints would not have been tossed out? Well, Your Honor, they're arguing it's not adversarial because there's no antagonistic assertion of rights and there's no evidence. But what counsel doesn't understand over here is the fact that they disagree makes it adversarial. Supreme Court said, if you disagree, adversarial. So, an adversarial system is a very specific thing. There are rules to that. That's why to have a valid cause of action, you have to have these three elements. There's the injury, there's damage, and there's redressability. Nowhere in there does it say that you have a valid cause of action because the person that you're accusing disagrees with you. So well, I say this and you say that. The words mean something. You don't just turn around and say, well, you're a murderer. You're a gang raping murderer. Well, where's your evidence of that? And you try to say, well, you say potato, I say potato, but you're a murderer. Because I'm gonna just say murderer means whatever the hell I want it to mean. Anything to just crap on the work without a valid criticism. I could sit here and actually read the rules of evidence, and somebody would say I did it wrong. They would actually come out and say that that's not accurate. Yeah. Just like we got here. Rule 602. Now, it's 702 in California, and this, depending on where you are, they may not have adopted the federal rule. But it's the same thing. It's a very straightforward rule. A witness may not testify to a matter. Well, a witness may testify to a matter only if evidence is introduced sufficient to support a finding that the witness has personal knowledge of the matter. So that's why I come out and it says evidence to prove personal knowledge may consist of the witness's own testimony. This rule does not apply to a witness's expert testimony under Rule 703. Now, the thing is, and I think I understand it. I'm pretty certain, if they're going to testify to a certain thing, that they have personal knowledge of that. That's what it says. And their testimony, their testimony can prove the personal knowledge. However, disclosure, pretrial discovery and disclosure, that should be disclosed. That's what discovery is. You're not supposed to be surprised. So if the evidence to show that the witness has personal knowledge, if that's going to be presented at trial, they have to tell you what it is in the pretrial. They have to tell you the evidence that they're going to be using against you. It says a witness may testify to a matter only if evidence is introduced to support sufficient to support a finding that the witness has personal knowledge of the matter. Well, that would be included in pretrial discovery. The evidence that they plan to use at the trial. I can read it directly from there, and someone's still going to say, well, he got it wrong. Whatever. People can disagree. People can disagree. Just like relevance here. Rule 401. The test for relevant evidence. Evidence is relevant if, A, it has any tendency to prove a fact or more or less probable than it would be without the evidence, and the fact is of consequence in determining the action. So, any tendency to prove the proposition. Sure, I'm going, someone's going to complain that I read that wrong, or I'm misinterpreting it, or I'm misunderstanding it. Well, relevance is king when you're in court. Because if the facts or the testimony isn't relevant, it's not admissible, regardless of how true or accurate it is. But if it doesn't have a tendency to make a fact more or less probable, and it's not of consequence in determining the action, not admissible. So, but we can expect that when we get to court, they're going to throw that out. These rules of evidence, if they get in the way of the prosecution, will be tossed out. It will be tossed out. We have judicial notice of adjudicated facts, which is Rule 201. Adjudicated facts, but we have judges on their own motion taking judicial notice of arguments. And then, on a timely request, that party is entitled to be heard. Well, I'll finish this in the next segment. My name is Mark Stevens. Listen to the No State Project here on LRN.FM and streaming live on my YouTube channel. We'll be back in just a few moments, so don't go away. Yes, welcome back to the last segment of the No State Project here on LRN.FM, the Liberty Radio Network, and I'm dropping the caller line. Doesn't look like we're going to do that today, so I'll save a couple of bucks there. And I will be pulling this video. It is a catastrophic. It's a failure. We just got the text now, but I have all the audio. I will pull this video. I will have just audio only posted today. Without the commercial breaks. And speaking of, I will be doing the show, of course, Wednesday on my YouTube channel, commercial free. And so check that out. want to get back to this, because this is, it doesn't happen that too often, but we need to know what happened. Well, what do we do if they take judicial notice of an argument? So if the police officer says, well, the laws apply and you violated them, and the judge actually takes judicial notice of part of that opinion. This is where, rules don't mean anything if it gets in the prosecution's way. Rule 201, again, this doesn't, it's a little more expansive in California, where judicial notice can be taken of laws and what they say. It still doesn't give the judge any discretion or authority to take judicial notice of a claim or an argument. That's just pure dishonesty. What it says here, so this is going to be true for 99. Well, look, you may not take judicial notice of arguments and claims, only adjudicated facts. So Rule 201 says the court may judicially notice a fact that is not subject to reasonable dispute because it, 1, is generally known within the trial court's territorial jurisdiction, or 2, can be accurately and readily determined from sources whose accuracy cannot reasonably be questioned. The operative word there is fact, not a legal claim. The court may take judicial notice on its own or must take judicial notice if a party requests it and the court is supplied with the necessary information. And this is subsection E. On a timely request, a party is entitled to be heard on the propriety of taking judicial notice and the nature of the fact to be noticed. If the court takes judicial notice before notifying a party, the party on request is still entitled to be heard. Wow. Fact. So you definitely should be objecting, and the objection is that it is not within the court's jurisdiction or, authority or discretion to take judicial notice of one of the prosecutor's arguments. A legal claim, no matter how much they think is true, is not an adjudicated fact. Now, I'm sure there'll be disagreement to this. Well, they can take judicial notice that can they take judicial notice that you were physically in Phoenix on the day in question? That's a trial issue. That's a trial issue. We've heard that 1,000 times. So if it's a trial issue, I don't believe that an element of the charge, and that's something that's a trial issue, is something that and should be done by judicial notice. But there's another inconsistency, which is what you can expect from these people. Inconsistency. Now, this ties in, of course, with the usual crap that I have to see. But I won't respond to YouTube comments. But if somebody wants, again, like last time, I said, if you want to get on the forum and raise these issues, then I will address it on the forum, but not on YouTube. And that is where they conflate facts with opinions. They're not the same thing. Now, this tie-in that I'm mentioning has to do with when we ask the police officer questions on cross-examination. And we asked them if they determined that that just because I was physically in Arizona, that the laws applied and gave them jurisdiction. Now, that is not asking him for his opinion. That is asking him to confirm what he did at the stop, a decision he made at the stop. You're not asking him, do the laws apply to me? That's opinion testimony that even 701 would allow, because if it's within his perception. So when he says that, yes, he determined at the stop or just prior to the stop that he saw me in Phoenix or in Arizona and determined the laws applied and gave him jurisdiction. When I ask him for the facts that determination was based on, and the prosecution objects, saying objection calls for legal conclusion, that he's deliberately misrepresenting what the question is and what it's trying to elicit. Asking for the facts is not asking him to elicit an opinion. So Rule 701 again says, if a witness is not testifying as an expert, testimony in the form of opinion is limited to one that is rationally based on the witness's perception. B, needed, helpful to clearly understanding the witness's testimony or determining a fact and issue. And C, not based on scientific, technical, or other specialized knowledge within the scope of 702. I'm not asking him to give an opinion. I'm asking him for the facts. So just like what does happen with the judicial notice. Instead of taking judicial notice of an adjudicated fact, they will take judicial notice of a legal opinion of the prosecution or the police officer, and that's not the purpose of judicial notice. So there's this conflating. There's this thing of treating facts as opinions and opinions as facts. And that's what we can expect from these people because they're so dishonest. But that goes right to the heart of what we've spoken about the show, when we talk about the morals and the ethics of this organization and those who are apologists for it. Instead of, saying A is A, they make excuses. I am the idiot for pointing it out. I am the scammer, the con man for pointing out the inconsistency. I am an idiot, or we are idiots, because we are insisting that when we ask a question for the facts the witness used to make his determination, that is somehow asking him for an opinion or a legal conclusion when that's just not true. That is a subtle form of gaslighting, or more not so subtle if it's in court, to try to get you to believe that you are an idiot, or that, let's just use me, to consistently, on every single show, try to convince me and other people that we are idiots because we are pointing out that a question asking for facts is not a question asking to elicit an opinion. That we're somehow stupid. We don't understand the subtleties of the law or the legal profession. No, we do understand. I do. I get it. I'm calling out BS. Is that orthodox? Maybe. Maybe not. That doesn't take away from the fact that we're right. Asking for the facts a claim or a decision was based on is not asking for a legal conclusion. Even if he made a legal conclusion at the traffic stop, asking for the facts that led him to believe that that was true is not asking him to give a legal conclusion. And no amount of insults is going to change that. So I'm not going to stop because it's not wrong. And I'm sure when I repost the video, there'll be the same comments. But I don't want anybody who's new to fall for that. What I'm presenting here and on every show has been rigorously through investigation and passes the logical test. Any half idiot knows that if you ask for where the facts and opinion or claim was based, that you're not trying to elicit a legal conclusion. That's stupid. So don't fall for the gaslighting crap. Don't fall for this crap that we're stupid. Don't fall for this. We're not smart enough. We're not smart enough to understand such subtleties. Facts are not opinions. Opinions are not facts. And anybody who tries to tell you different is dishonest. I'll be pulling this live stream off of YouTube later tonight. We'll have the good video with all the commercials, breaks edited out. And I will be live on the Wednesday commercial-free broadcast. You can get the information at markstevens.net. So till next time, salud.